Kathy. Good evening. I want to welcome you to this forum for candidates running for the Yavapai College Board of Governors District 3. They will appear on the November 6th general election ballot, and as Kathy mentioned, this forum this evening is hosted by the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley. I'm Gail Degatti. I am a member of the League of Women Voters and serving as your moderator this evening. This forum is also being videotaped by Verde Valley TV for broadcast on Cable 1, Channel 56, Sunlink Channel 2, and YouTube. Just as a way of introduction, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which envisions a democracy where every person possesses the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate in that democracy. The purpose of our forum this evening is for you to hear from the candidates on why they wish to serve on the Yavapai College Board of Governors, and also to give you an opportunity to ask questions about issues that are important to you and subsequently will be important to them. The goal for this forum is threefold: fairness, civility, and engagement. We have members of the League here this evening who are going to function in a couple of roles. The first one is the timekeeper, and that's Mary Gassaway, who's sitting up here in the front, and her role is to keep us all on time. She has three signs: a 1-minute sign, a 30-second sign, and a stop sign. And she will raise the 1-minute sign and then the 30-second sign to alert you, the candidates, how much time is remaining in your section of time for that question. She will also raise the stop sign to signal that it's time to end your thought, finish your sentence. And if you have a little bit of challenge doing that, I will help you with that. Okay? We have two other League members here, Robin Prudhomme-Bauer, who's in the back, and Kathy Kinsella, who you just met. And their role is to collect your written questions and organize them into topic areas and then give them to me so that I can present them to the candidates. So it's a good idea as you hear the candidates speaking, if an idea comes to your mind, you want to ask a question, write it down at the moment and just hold it up and they will collect it because they're organizing real time as we're working here. The format for this evening is in 3 parts. The first part will be opening remarks, and each candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce himself or herself to you. And then they will be given 2 minutes following those opening remarks to answer a question from the League of Women Voters, which was provided to them in advance of tonight's forum. So that's the first part. The second part is your engagement and your involvement. We encourage you to write your questions on 3x5 cards, and since we're a small group here, we could actually have you pose your questions real time to the candidates and not necessarily have to go through me. The candidates will be given 1 to 2 minutes to answer the question that's posed to them, and depending upon the number of issues we have to cover, we will be able to allow some time for rebuttal if necessary. So that's part 2, question and answer. That's the biggest part of our forum this evening. The final part is closing remarks, and the candidates will have 2 minutes each to share their final remarks on why they want to serve you on the Yavapai College Board of Governors. As we get started, I also want to go over a couple of guidelines. And these are important, and I'm sure I won't have to enforce any rules. You'll just be right on target with these guidelines. The first is that my role is to manage the forum fairly so that the candidates and you keep the discussion moving forward. The order of speaking was determined beforehand by alpha order. So as we do opening remarks, Paul will go first, and then Connie, and then when we get to closing remarks, it'll be the opposite direction. The candidates, of course, are going to be respectful of each other's points of view. They're going to speak their mind freely, and they're not going to engage in any personal attacks. And they won't interrupt each other either. For you, the audience, you're asked to refrain from applauding or in other ways demonstrating support or non-support for the candidates and their comments. We'll have a time at the end for applause. Time limits on responses to questions will be strictly observed, and I have the responsibility of enforcing those time limits. And finally, if the guidelines are not adhered to by the candidates or the audience, then I'm empowered to adjourn the forum, and I don't think I'm going to have to do that. You all look very civil this evening, okay? So now I would like to introduce the candidates to you. On my far left is Paul Chevalier, and right next to me is Connie Harris. Let's begin the forum with opening statements from the candidates. Again, each of you have 2 minutes to tell us why you are running for the Board of Governors and share with us your qualifications and your skills for the position. So, Paul, let's begin with you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for holding this important forum. Thanks also to the inspirational leaders who have endorsed me, including Chair Jane Weinicki, the Yavapai Apache Nation, and County Supervisors Randy Garrison and Tom Thurman from Yavapai County Districts 2 and 3, which is the Verde Valley. Further thanks to the 3 former governing board members who held this position before Dr. Harris, which are Donna Michaels, Bob Oliphant, and Al Filardo, who held the position I am running for immediately prior to Dr. Harris. My thanks go to the former mayors, business leaders, and community leaders who are endorsing me as well. To each of you, I'm grateful. I am Paul Chevalier, and I'm well qualified for this job. Educationally, I have degrees in government, law, and business from Columbia and Harvard universities. I've been successful in business and at law. The Verde Valley has been my home for 20 years, and I know it well. I have chaired a number of important nonprofit organizations in the county. Currently, I am chair of the Verde Valley Board Advisory Committee, a committee of the college's district governing board consisting of individuals nominated by each municipality, the county unincorporated areas, plus the Yavapai Apache Nation. For almost 2 years, we met monthly. We met with college faculty, almost all members of college leadership, including the president, city and town councils, the district governing board, district leaders, etc. I learned a great deal about our community's educational needs and the operation of the college and the board, and I've learned that we need significant college improvements in the Verde Valley. The Verde Valley needs an effective advocate, and I can be that person.
Thank you. Connie?
Good evening, and thank you, League of Women Voters. I appreciate that, and everybody who's here and who's listening. So I've been in Arizona since my family moved here in 1960, so I'm almost a native. And so my education was throughout this state and started at the community college level at post-high school in the Phoenix area, and then Arizona State University for a bachelor's and a master's degree, and then NAU for another master's, and then my doctorate from Arizona State University in educational leadership. I'm one of those lifelong learner type of people. And I parlayed that into over 4 decades of working in education in K-12 and then at the Arizona State University as a clinical assistant professor, dealing with doctoral students and masters in leadership. And then the final 4 years, I worked as the executive director for the Advanced Ed or North Central Accreditation, which is an international and national accrediting agency. And there I really focused on, even more than before, on systems assessment and on continuous improvement. And that's what I bring to the board for the future as we move on, because that is really critical. Leadership, experienced great leadership matters, and experienced great leadership builds relationships, and relationships help achieve the outcomes that are important to the Verde Valley and to the Sedona area, as well as across the county. And so I bring all that experience forward, and I spent the last 18 months, 19 months on the board, filling the position that Paul mentioned, and I've been listening and learning and finding that there's lots of room for improvement. There's some stellar things that are going on, but there's lots of room for improvement. And I have my feet on the ground, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. So we're going to pose the question now from the League of Women Voters before we get to all these questions from you. And it was supplied to you before this evening's forum, and we're going to start with you, Connie. So here's the question. How would you balance the needs and facilities of all the Yavapai College campuses without imposing restrictive travel requirements on the students? For example, nursing students go to the Verde Valley campus, or hospitality, culinary students are in the Prescott area. How would you balance the needs and facilities?
Yeah, that's a complex question for 2 minutes. So Yavapai County is a large region, and actually there's nursing on both sides, and culinary is on the Verde side in Sedona, and starting with a JTED, the Mountain Institute, on the other side. But right now there are 2 full-service campuses that serve the entire county, and there are 4 learning center, or 4 educational centers, including the Sedona Center, which is in Sedona, obviously. And then there are 4 remote learning sites in partnership with libraries in Ash Fork and Yarnell and Mayor and Camp Verde. So those are outreaches where students have access, or learners have access to resources, as well as what's increased over the last few years is dual enrollment opportunities and opportunities with what used to be called JTEDs, that are joint technical education districts, that are now changed to CTEDs, which are career educational districts. The other area that we really pushed on in the college is online learning. And so at this time, over 20% of the students are full-time online, and 40% of the students who attend the face-to-face classes take at least 1 class each semester. So it's kind of migrated to some online. And then there's partnershiping with the college and the county and cities in looking at further partnerships with transportation and increasing the bandwidth into the county. But the part that needs to be looked at and increased in the Verde Valley area is that of career and technical education at this time. That is a strength of the entire system, but in the county, we need some more.
Thank you. Do you want me to repeat the question, or?
Sure.
Okay. How would you balance the needs and facilities of all the Yavapai College campuses without imposing restrictive travel requirements on students?
Well, I'd stop this idea of one central campus. We have 70,000 people in the Verde Valley. There's about 140,000 on the other side of the mountain. Remote learning centers for here is not the answer. It's certainly an answer for certain places, but Clarkdale, Cottonwood, Sedona, Camp Verde, we're not remote. We need to take the money that we raise here in taxes, tuition, fees, our percent of the state money and other senses, and use it in each district rather than have that money funneled over to Prescott, much of which isn't even used for education. First thing we gotta do is find out how much money for sure we have. I think right now it looks like we're giving $22 million in taxes, and we're getting $9 million back on average. The rest of it is going somewhere else, and that somewhere else is obviously Prescott. That's got to end. If I get elected to the position and the fellow that gets elected, that's running in Prescott gets elected, we're going to make it fair for every single part of this county, not just us. But we are the ones, particularly this district, who are getting outrageously, just used as a cash cow. That's got to end. It's really simple. It starts with, let's put the money in the places where the money is coming from. Our career technical education is terrible here. They have a 100,000 square foot building over in Prescott. We have an 8,000 square foot building. That's got to end. We should have a 40,000 square foot building. They've been asked about that. The city council keeps asking them, well, when are we going to get a building over here? They said, we're studying it. They said that 18 months ago. And again, Scott Diablo of the Sedona City Council asked a week or 2 weeks ago of Dean Perry, we're studying it. Stop with the study. Let's do it. If I get elected, this other guy gets elected, we'll have a majority. Things will change.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to turn to your questions now. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to pose the question. One time Connie will answer it first. The next time Paul will answer the question first. And I believe it's 2 minutes per question. Is that correct, Mary? Okay, let's try 2 minutes. We have a lot of questions here, so let's get started. Okay? The first one is, the governing board on May 8th voted to approve a, is it 2% property tax increase? Prior to that vote, what statements did you make or actions did you take relative to this issue? Let's start with you, Paul.
Okay, let's go. I have to go back to 2016 when they posed the same thing. And the vice president of the college stood up in front of everybody that was in the Prescott meeting and said, if we don't get this, these are the things we're going to have to cut. So, as usual, the three people from the other side of the mountain voted for it. Now Florida was on the board, and Deb McCastin voted against it from the Verde Valley. Then I was there at the end of the year when they came in with how much surplus did they have. Now, they said that that was going to give them $800,000 and they needed it. They came in with a $1.6 million surplus. They didn't need the money. This time around, I wasn't in any position to go argue anything because even though our committee is still technically there, and we made 24 recommendations, they suspended our committee about 2 years ago. So we had no voice anymore. But we would have done the same thing here and objected to it. We have the highest cost per student of any of the community colleges in the county. I'm sorry, in the state. 21 community colleges. We have the highest cost per student. Somebody's got to get in there and look at how we're spending money. We don't have to keep raising taxes. I want to get the taxes lowered. I want to get equity over here in terms of education. I want to get the taxes lowered. And so does the guy on the other side of the mountain running. And it will happen because we'll get in. One of the things I want to do is put together a finance committee of citizens to go in and take a look at what nobody has looked at for more than a dozen years. Their financial records. How are they spending the money? Sedona City Council did that long ago, and it was a useful thing. We need to do that at the college, and if I get in, this other guy gets in, he wants to do the same thing, Deb's in, we will do it, and we'll end up lowering taxes.
Thank you. Connie?
Yeah, thank you. As a board member, I reviewed all of the data from the budget review that was given and looked at it and was very concerned when it originally came up at 4%. And I still had questions at 2%. And so I met with the chief financial vice president. And so I did not vote to increase the taxes. We voted as a board, and the board voted to move forward. But I did not feel at this time, nor probably in the near future, do we need to be raising taxes from the property tax, as you mentioned. I will say this, in regards to the cost per student, it is at this time like second highest out of the 10 community colleges, and some of that has to do with career and technical education. We have more percentage-wise than many of the others, and so those career and technical education programs tend to run 40% more to run those classes and courses than it does for English 101 or calculus. But there's other items that are being provided, and so those things might need to be looked at. But some of them are like the Performing Arts Center. It costs money. It's not breaking even. Those things need to be looked at. So I would say that there's opportunities to look there.
Thank you. There are 3 questions here that have a common theme, and So I'm going to pose them as a unit as opposed to three separate questions. And the theme is decision-making and how you go about this decision-making process and how you gather input. So the first question was, do you consider the needs and wants of only District 3 residents or residents of the entire county? The second one said, do you engage the Yavapai Apache Nation to address educational needs and concerns that they have in your decision-making process? And the third part is, there are former district governing board members in District 3. Do you consult with them to gain their perspective in your decision-making process? So the major question is, how do you go about making decisions as a member of the board? Connie, I'll start with you.
At this time, the board uses some forums or focus groups. That's one way for outreach that's been happening, as well as surveys. But over the course of the last year and a half, as I've been studying different methods of boardsmanship and outreach, it's important to hear as many voices as possible. And so reaching out is reaching out to all of the people in the District 3 for sure, but also tapping others in the other districts, because we represent the board represents the entire county. But the perspective from the District 3 rep should also be heard to be certain. And so that is what I would say on that right now. I would also go on to state that it's good to have diverse opinions on the board and making decisions. It's really important, and to bring wisdom forward in working and walking through conflict to find decisions that best meet the needs of our constituents and their voices, and that it's weighed, that representative input is weighed, because a divisive board is not going to be an effective board. So it's important that as much as possible, after listening to diverse opinions, that we come to some kind of consensus or solutions that help move the vision and the vision of meet the needs of the learners in the community and the residents. So it's important to hear them all and listen to them all and do some of it in a formal manner and some of it informally. And some of that has not been done as well as it could be.
Thank you. Paul, do you want me to repeat the question? Or
Yes, please.
Okay, let's see if I can. These three questions had to do with decision-making and how do you go about the decision-making process. The first one wanted to know, do you consider the needs and wants of only District 3 residents or residents of the entire county? The second was, do you engage the Yavapai Apache Nation to address their educational needs and concerns in the decision-making process? And the final component was, do you consult former district governing board members to gain their perspective? How do you go about making decisions?
Okay. Let me try to take all three of those, and maybe if there's time, I'll say a little more. Obviously, you want the needs and wants of the whole county, but the needs and wants of Prescott have been very well filled, and the needs and wants of the Verde Valley have not. So obviously, the biggest focus is going to have to be in needs and wants of the Verde Valley, and that's what I plan to do. Doesn't mean I'm going to shortchange Prescott. I don't want a penny of the tax money that they pay in the two districts in Prescott to be spent in the Verde Valley. I want the money from the Verde Valley to be spent in the Verde Valley. So it's pretty easy. Secondly, engage the Yavapai Apache Nation. My biggest supporter is the Yavapai Apache Nation. They gave a huge amount to this campaign. Why? Because they're totally dissatisfied with the way that the college has mistreated them. They're an important part of our community, and I plan to work very closely with them, get them the education they need. Third, consult former district governing board members. Yeah, I've consulted all three closely since 2013. I work very closely with them. I met with them, talked with them, and I'm doing that right now. Yeah, they're full of information and knowledge, Absolutely. Now, beyond that, let's talk about the governing board. The governing board doesn't govern. Let's start with that. They've turned all the governance they legally can over to the president of the college, who is supposed to be there representing the educational professionals and the students. But she's not there to represent you, the public. So no one's representing you, the public, in the Verde Valley. They're being well represented over in Prescott, but they're not representing you. I want to take back the governance. Obviously, there's a lot of governance going to stay with the college, and it should. The day-to-day stuff, making decisions on courses, et cetera. But the important things that deal with money, fairness, equity, I stopped. I stop immediately when you say stop.
Okay. Okay. Well, this next question will let you expand on this idea of input and engagement. What have you done to address and identify the post-secondary needs of the Verde Valley? And I think we started with you last time, Connie, so we'll start with Paul this time.
Okay, I've done a lot. From 2014 to 2016, I chaired the Verde Valley Board Advisory Committee. Bill Regner was my vice chair. We had a brilliant committee. I mean, these were the top people I could imagine that were selected by the city councils, town councils, board of superintendents, and we worked very, very hard. We interviewed everybody. Personally, I handled the setting up of a town hall in Sedona. 93 people came, 33 people spoke. We did this kind of things all over the Verde Valley. I spoke before every city and town council. I spoke to the board of superintendents. I met with the superintendents of schools. I met with the public. I met with all kinds of people. And together with this great committee, we unanimously came up with 23 recommendations. One recommendation, we had one person abstain because he thought it wasn't strong enough. We were a team. We work as a team. Somebody has a good idea. Somebody comes with a better idea, you go to that. Somebody has a better idea yet, you go to that, knowing there's a better idea still out there. And we presented the best ideas to the city council. They didn't even discuss them. They approved one, keeping the building in Sedona there. The other 23, they never discussed. They turned it over to the president. They meet 9 months a year and listen to the president say what I've done. Boom. I finished early.
Connie?
You want to repeat the question?
Okay, here it is. The question is, what have you done to address and identify the post-secondary needs of the Verde Valley?
What I have done is been part of the board on the surveys that just went out and part of the focus groups to listen, to hear what the concerns and interests are. And so that's been the start over this last year to look forward and move forward. And so I really do honor and respect the past efforts of people who brought some issues forward. I think that's really, really important. I think it's important that we learn from those. And I think it's important that we take those learnings and that we move forward focused on the vision and also become proactive in helping make some of those things that are truly supported by the data and the needs and the economic needs become a reality. So I'm well connected as far as understanding post-secondary education and needs, but every community is different. And so the community here is different, and we're reaching out to meet the needs of those learners. And we are finding that we have changing demographics here. Our demographics are going online, they're aging. There's not as many young students coming out of high school into the college. There are more, some of them are taking dual enrollment classes, so they're already ahead of the game. And there's been an increase in the number of people who are taking non-credit courses and also doing OLLI classes. And so that population that's retiring and looking at other things is ever increasing here. So there's a balance in what we need to be doing to reach out to people to improve their quality of life here in the Verde Valley.
Thank you. This next question has to do with governance models. And there are many different models by which a board structures its governance. This one is specific to the Carver governance method. So the question is, will you vote to do away with or abandon the Carver governance model for the Yavapai College Governing Board? Starting with you, Paul?
Okay. First of all, the way they use the Carver model at the governing board is not the way the Carver model reads. They use it to find a way to give all the governance to the president. It really doesn't say that. But the reality is we have Arizona revised statutes that say very clearly what the governing board's supposed to do. It also says you can delegate. But the intent was never to delegate everything or everything except making money decisions. And that's what they did. The board doesn't want to work. They don't work. And I want a board that works. And I promise you, I will work. The people who are on the committee with me, and some are in this room, they know I worked. And I will make it better. The governing board model now is a joke. Of course it'll go away. Of course, the new board, if we get a majority on the board, we're going to take back a lot of the governance. We're going to represent the public. We're going to represent you. And that means we have to govern. And I don't see that there's much more to say, so I'll stop there.
Thank you. Connie, do you want me to repeat the question? Or
Go ahead.
okay. Will you vote to do away with or abandon the Carver governance model for the governing board?
Well, I agree with Paul. In the legislation, it states that governing boards with community colleges really are tasked with making policy, and also in Arizona, they oversee the overarching piece of budget. I think those are really important. And what I've seen from studying the Carver model over the last 18 months is there's some strengths inside of it that provide structure. What I've found, so I'm not going to say yes or no to answer that question, but right off the top, I would say that it does not, perhaps the board has not set enough specific parameters, but it has not certainly delegated the responsibilities and the accountability off of the shoulders of the president. The board is ultimately responsible in holding him or her accountable. And if they're not following and meeting those outcomes and ends, then that's a responsibility to the board to ensure that there's expectations that are set that tighten that up, that don't allow inappropriate decisions or climate or personnel or anything else to be happening. So it provides a structure that does not abdicate responsibility. It puts more responsibility back on the board to achieving those ends. If things aren't happening, then it's the board's responsibility. So I think that there's probably some work to tighten up some of those policies and procedures at this time. But after studying and working with it for 18 months, I see where there are some benefits, but I also see some areas where there absolutely can be improvements.
Okay, thank you. The next question has to do with administration and compensation to administration. So here's the question. Do you feel that the $280,000 salary of the Yavapai Community College president is appropriate? And why did the board award the president a $3,000 bonus when she resigned? You want to take it first, Connie?
Well, I came into this 20 months ago, so that salary was sitting there, and I would think that it's commensurate with other presidents that are around, but it certainly would look at that. That wasn't something that I was a part of the negotiations in agreeing to, but it doesn't sound too far off from some other educational leaders in community colleges that I've heard of. In regards to, what was the last part of?
Why did the board award a $3,000 bonus when the president resigned?
Part of the evaluation process each year is to look and see, is to evaluate. That's another one of those legal pieces, to evaluate the president. And that's done throughout the course of the year. And so if he or she is meeting those needs, there's a decision to, the board has a decision to make a suggestion for an increase or not. And so as part of the annual process and looking to see that the staff and faculty, that they were also being compensated for their achieving their goals and all. So that was part of that. It had nothing to do with someone resigning. It had to do with completing and meeting their expectations throughout the course of the year.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, let's start with this. We're living in Yavapai County. We're not living in one of the super expensive places in the United States. 10 years ago, my understanding is the president was being paid $125,000 a year. Now it's $280,000. Sounds awfully high to me. She is paid about at least $50,000 more than any other public employee in this county. With regard to the $3,000 bonus, let me clarify, this was not a $3,000 bonus. This was a $3,000 salary increase, which will go into her pension. She announced in March she was leaving, and in May she got a $3,000 salary increase when she's leaving in December. You know, I've been in business for a long time. I've never heard of that before. It makes no sense to me that you would give someone a salary increase other than it's going to increase her pension. So I think that was dead wrong. I haven't seen any studies of what other people make in other parts of the country. I don't know if Dr. Wills has, but if I had been on the board at that time, I would have looked long and hard, and I would have looked at the other people in the county and say, well, if 10 years ago it was $125,000, why does it have to be $280,000 now? That seems like an awfully big increase. I mean, I never had a job where you get an increase that fast in 10 years. So, yeah, I think it's way too high. I think the next president, we have to look very carefully at the salary, but I have a feeling we won't because now the current board is deciding that in December, they're going to pick the next president, even if the incumbents lose. And we're taking office in January. They won't allow us to be part of that decision, and they're going to fix the salary, and they're going to get the person, even though the person's job will change if the two of us get elected. They won't even know what the job is that they're putting the president into, but they intend to do it. 4 of them. The only one that isn't intending to do it is Deb McCaslin.
Thank you. The next set of questions have to do with issues that are really important to students. And those issues are transportation and housing. So the first question is, what transportation options should the college provide? Between campuses, community to campus within the community. So what are your thoughts about transportation? And then the next part of it is, what are your thoughts about providing housing for students? So transportation and housing, 2 important issues to students. Paul, let's start with you.
Well, when our committee was formed, we made up a list of things we wanted to study, and one of them on the list was transportation. Our studies were complex and took time. We never got to the transportation issue, but it was high on our list. It needs an active study, and the board's done nothing about the transportation issue over here. Nothing. I would want to study this and find the best solutions. But today I don't have it. It is a complicated subject. But if I get elected, that's going to be one of the things that gets studied. Housing, we've been talking about getting housing over here for a long time. We've got the land. We've got the land in Clarkdale. But nobody does it. The board says, well, we're studying that. Nothing happens. I want to get a real study to see not whether or not we should do it, but how we should do it. So that's one of the things I want to do. There's plenty of housing over in Prescott, lots of housing, most of it for athletes that come from out of state. I don't know if you're aware of that, but we have about 80 athletes on the 4 teams. Only two of them come from Yavapai County. The others are all on scholarships, scholarships that are not being given to Yavapai County residents because they go to those out-of-state athletes to form these teams that only 2 people from Yavapai County are on. And they live in the housing.
Thank you. Connie?
I concur. I think transportation is a complex subject, and that I know the college has been working with the county and on trying to improve the challenges that are there. And so, but because it doesn't only affect education, it affects healthcare, and it affects economic development. And so I really believe that we need to be looking a little closer to that. But I don't have, like Paul, I don't have the answers on that. That's something we certainly need to look more closely at. And in regards to housing, I think housing is an issue all around the county after listening to some superintendents and some healthcare providers for not just students, but for the workers, the teachers, the healthcare givers. It's affordable housing, let me say it that way. Affordable housing is not as adequate as it could be. If you're talking about the dorms that are at the Yavapai College in Prescott, which I think that's what it's relating to, that's one of the reasons why the cost per student is up there at the 9th or 10th in the state for community colleges, because it costs money to keep those dorms up and running. That's a reality. Is that something we need to continue? Don't know. But at this time, that is part of a reality. So those are 2 tough issues that certainly can and need to be looked at very, very, very soon.
Thank you. The next question has to do with online instruction. Do you feel online class options should be expanded? And do you feel that there should be a required amount of in-classroom time or credits? Connie, let's start with you.
Right. I have learned so much about online learning as I had the opportunity to develop an online master's program for Dr. Crow for Arizona State University. And I think working through the challenges that is an appropriate method for some programs and for some people. It's certainly not for everyone. I think looking at, but it can be excellent. It can be outstanding. I just finished a Zoom online course that was really robust. But I think that we need to be looking at blended learning. And so that blended learning is some online, some face-to-face, and come to sites and be with teachers. Those things are certainly to be looked at. To expand online learning, people are talking with their feet and are going online and taking courses because it fits their needs, so they can be home with their kids or do their work whenever. So I think we need to have that option there. I think it needs to be quality online learning. I was pleased to see the college had started pursuing Quality Matters, which has some specific standards, credentialing for folks who are ready to push the bar up on online learning, and many of the staff members are putting their courses through that audit process to see if they can reach those standards. So I believe in quality online learning, not just online learning. I believe in blended learning where there's some on-site and not, and it's just, it's part of the future, and who knows what's going to come after that.
Thank you. Paul, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I think I'm okay.
All right.
Okay, let's start. Online learning, absolutely. We need it. Quality can be better. They're working on it. I'm glad to see that. But we need to focus and really work on it. Price for it needs to go down. I want to get tuition as close to free as possible again for everybody. And we can do that as we get more efficient on how we're spending money. I mean, when I'm hearing what the president's being paid, when I'm hearing the money that's going out, you know, for a 1,200-seat amphitheater, for tennis courts where we don't have a tennis team, there's lots of ways we can save money. And one of the things I want to do besides lowering taxes is bring down that cost of tuition for online instruction and for people in-house. I want us to market online instruction much more. We don't market it enough. We're marketing to the wrong people. You know, we're marketing to people who are graduates of the school. They're coming up with these slick brochures. They're planning 5 slick brochures. God knows the cost of mailing just those brochures is going to be a fortune. I want to market, I want to target market. Just like retail target markets. I want to find out the way to target market. Do I know how to do that this moment? No. But if I get in office, I'm going to really try to work on figuring out the best target marketing. And then with regular classes, sure we need it, particularly for career technical education. We absolutely got to get the people in for most of it. There may be a little bit done online, but most of the time if you're a welder, you can't do that online. You know, even nurses, there's some things they got to be there. Some of it can be online. So I want to build that career technical education big, but I do want to go forward with online marketing, yes.
Okay, great segue. Next question. We're going to start with you, Paul, and the question is, do you believe the Verde Valley needs more career technical education programming? And if you do, how and when?
Okay, well, obviously you know I believe in that. As to the how and when, what I'd like to see is there have been people, one of them is in this room, who has found a possible location, and there may be others, where we can get maybe a 40,000 square foot building in a very good location in the Verde Valley, fix it, put in the career technical education we need, talking to the business owners, like, what do we need, you know? HVAC? Sounds good. Talk to the hospitals. What do they need, you know? Oh, I want to get it going. I want to buy the building next year. I want to get it fixed by no later than the beginning of the year after, and start the courses. Enough of this studying stuff. We have money that we can use for that right now. We don't have to spend $4 million on a soccer field, which has been a discussion over in Prescott for some time now. Forget that. They can continue to use the high school soccer field. Let's spend $4 million over here and buy the building we need. So yeah, I want to go, and I want to go now. I've learned enough in the 2 years I studied this. Plus, I've got all these smart people around that I can call on to get these things done now. So let's stop talking about it, which to me is just a way to say, we don't want to spend the money because we want to spend it in Prescott. So if we do these things over here, we won't have the money to spend it in Prescott. I don't know if you're aware of it. When I got involved in this in 2014, they came out with a plan for building over the next 10 years, which said, spend $103.5 million for building. 99 million of it in Prescott, or the other side of the mountain. Maybe not all in Prescott, but almost all in Prescott. 3.5 million here, huh? We put in 30% of the cost. We already got messed up on that when we had the last bond issue. We were supposed to get 30% of that bond issue because we paid for 30% of it. We get 15% of it, and we're still paying for 30% of it. Enough.
Thank you. Connie, do I need to repeat the question?
Yes.
Repeat the question? Okay. Do you believe the Verde Valley needs more career technical education programming? And if so, how and when?
Absolutely, 100%. And part of that could be in partnership with the Verde area Career and Technical Education District. I haven't got that CTED down yet. I know it's going to be rebranded with a different name. I think that's one powerful means of helping increase that, as well as those. Well, anyway, the whole JTED movement, which is what's happening at the Sedona campus with the culinary arts and hospitality piece. That's huge. I believe the CTE programs, when we look at the studies from the APS helped sponsor, and they came up with the 6 clusters of areas of need for development of programs are for the future, the college is addressing 5 of those, and one of them's not being addressed at all, and that's advanced machinery. And so that's one area for sure to be looking at. To look at the trends in the Verde Valley, the areas that are looking at growth right now really do include registered nurses and personal care assistants, but also the areas of firefighting, first responders, law enforcement, and AA degrees, because a lot of our students who leave here then go to NAU or the other universities are majoring in business. So CTE is huge. And I think a couple of shining stars around here is the viticulture and enology, which is perfectly poised here in the valley and supporting the economic development, because that's just blossoming across the valley. That's huge. And the piece at the Sedona, whoever helped push that forward, kudos to you. The hospitality and culinary at Sedona is a star.
Thank you. The next question kind of keeps going on with that idea with a little bit different slant. The person who proposed this question has an assumption that it's valuable and important that the elected boards that represent the high schools, as well as the vocation, Verde Area Career Technical Education District, should work together productively to enrich the educational opportunities for Verde Valley students. That's the assumption. And what you've talked about so far, you've talked about partnership and collaboration. What this question really asks you is, how will you go about engaging with the high school boards and the Verde Area Career Technical Education District? How are you going to do that? And did we start with Paul last time?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so it's your turn.
So I think we need to be reaching out with that. And one of them that we've been reaching out most recently is with the Verde CTED. the Verde CTED, and based on interest and a need that didn't hit the big 7, but it's a need in our area, is the construction trades. And so although there's a program that's just being initiated in Chino Valley, there will be one this spring here, and we're working with the CTED here to make that happen. So yes, I think we need to be reaching out to the major high school boards and the CTEDs, including the Mountain Institute on the other side, to make sure that we are offering the programs that make sense for the economic sustainability for the future for this area. So I think it needs to be a thoughtful process and not a willy-nilly one. And so based on some of the research there, that we're trending towards that and expanding. But there's still much more to do, because we haven't pushed for, because we haven't put support yet behind the construction piece. So we're looking at that here, and also the advanced manufacturing for sure. And keep working on the aging population is needing some of those health caregivers and nurses as well.
Would you repeat the last part of the question?
How will you go about engaging with the 3 high school governing boards and the Verde Area Career Technical Education District?
I've already done some of it. I met with the head of VACT, that's the name of the CTE here, just a few days ago, and I said, look, if I get elected, we get a majority on the board, I want you to start thinking about right now what we can do to work together better so we can have a closer alliance. So hopefully he's working on that. As far as working with, the high schools, I don't know about the governing boards necessarily, but I think more about the superintendent of schools. I met with one of those last week too. But what I want to do with the 3 is I want to get people back here in Clarkdale who are counselors, who will work with the counselors in the high school, just like Barbie did, and it worked. They work together, and you find out what the kids in the high school need, and you make sure the college is providing it for them. And then they talk back and forth to the kids in the high school so they know the college is ready to help them. We don't do that here. I don't know if they do it in Prescott, but we don't do it here anymore. Those jobs have been cut. Staff has been cut to the bone here. Even teachers. We have 3 English teachers, and what they've been told is if one of you quits, you're not going to be replaced. So the idea is make the cost here less so you have more money to spend in Prescott. That I want to end.
Okay, thank you. This next question asks each of you if you are familiar with the Verde Valley Board Advisory Committee June 2015 recommendation report. Paul, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I have some of
Okay.
it here as a matter of
Okay,
fact.
just a second. Connie, are you familiar with that report?
I don't have it memorized, I read it.
You read it, okay. So you do have some knowledge of that report. Because the next part of it is, what recommendations do you agree with?
But I don't remember all of that from when I first read it 18 months ago,
Okay,
but
Paul's prepared for this one. So the question is, what recommendations do you agree with, and which ones do you not support? So why don't you go first, and maybe it'll
Yeah, I
trigger
agree.
some thoughts.
I agree with all of them because we made them. 24 recommendations, 23 unanimous, and one with one person said we didn't go far enough. I'll read you some of them, and maybe that might help Connie jog her memories. Allocate a far greater percentage of financial resources generated in the Verde to the Verde. Implement an ongoing Verde marketing recruitment program of continuous and direct interaction with Verde lower and secondary education students and their parents. Create a CTE building. We made these in 2015, guys. Nothing's happened. Create in the Verde Valley a CTA building for classes and fields that meet the needs of Verde residents. Increase Verde scholarship and financial assistance and maintain an affordable tuition rate. Instead of giving the scholarships to these athletes mostly from California. Fund all capital projects privately or through bonding, rather than taxes, tuition, or fees. See, if you do that, then you got to go back to the public and justify what you want to spend the money for. You know, when we did the bond some years ago, we promised to spend 30% over here. We didn't do it. So the people from here voted it in. Actually, the people from the other side of the mountain didn't vote it in. Our votes carried it over. And then we got slammed. We didn't get what we were promised. So go back to the public if you want to build public buildings and use the other money for tuition, fees, maintenance, that kind of thing. Build stronger local partnerships with business development, job creation. We have not done that. I was at a meeting, Connie was at the meeting where the people were very politely complaining about that in business, how they wanted more. Focus on solutions for Verde affordable housing. That's just a handful of them. The board did not even talk about them. The board did not have the power because they gave it to the president, so they didn't talk about them.
I'm going to make an executive decision here, since Paul is going through the recommendations, to provide another 2 minutes for you to go through these recommendations so we know what they are.
I'll let her read them. Here they are. Here's a copy of some of them. Here they are, some of them. I've got 16 of them right there.
Okay, well, why don't you keep going, Paul, and give us the full list of the recommendations, and then we'll give Connie an opportunity to respond.
Well, I don't know if I have the full list, but I've got a lot of them.
The ones you have.
Okay. Add sufficient remote learning centers for distant learning opportunities. They've added some. Provide and increase core transfer courses. Some of that's been done. Provide and increase multiple pathways for 2+1, 2+2 certification and CTE. Well, certainly nothing's been done for CTE over here. The rest of it, some of it may have been done. Add focus on working with governments in all the Verde communities to increase broadband coverage that can be used by the college. I'm not aware of anything that's been done on that. Further incorporate workforce demand analysis in education decision-making. Encourage the immediate exploration of alternative models or structures to increase foundation-related activities and fundraising in the Verde. Nothing's happened on that. There was a committee over here, but that is the Verde Scholarship Fund, but I have to tell you, it's full of people from the college on that. It's executive positions. You know, I can go to more here.
Well, let me ask Connie, do you have some recollection of some of those recommendations to which you'd like to speak?
Right. Let me speak to a couple of them.
Okay, thank you.
One in regards to what I would call articulation from the high school level with advisors and working. Actually, I think it even needs to start in elementary school, not at the high school level, but advisors are back on the campuses. The Yavapai College advisors are back on the high school campuses as part of a Pathways initiative to help increase the success of students and encouraging them to pursue post-secondary education. And some of them, I was speaking with some of the advisors and a couple of the principals of the schools, and they even have offices for them on their campuses. So they're there doing that. I think that part is there. And then there's a pathway program that's in the end of its second year right now, just starting to see some positive results where there's a focus for increasing student achievement. And that's a collaborative effort on the part of the faculty for success. And so that piece has been addressed. Some of the other things that you mentioned there are also have been done, and some have not. But the community outreach and marketing was also a piece that I would underscore. And that parity of financial parity is critical. The taxpayers' money from their property taxes, for the most part, a significant, if not all, but portion should be spent back here and into this community. And the report that I read is 4 years old, and at that time it looked like it was close to 87% was put back here. I don't know if that's changed, or I'm not sure how that's measured. So I'm just saying I think that needs to happen. I agree. There needs to be. We need to strengthen the presence of Yavapai College in the Verde Valley through the programs, whether it's CTE, whether it's dual enrollment, whether it's lifelong learning. We need to strengthen it, and part of that means we need to channel some money into supporting that.
Can I clarify the 87% for the audience?
Sure.
Okay. When the college had over here in the Verde Valley, had 40-year-old temporary buildings. Finally, about a decade ago, a little less than that actually, the college decided they had to replace them. So they did. Actually, they put nice buildings in, but they only put in half as many classrooms, reducing the population of students from 30 to 17%. And in those 2 years, they spent 87% of the money coming in from the Verde Valley and the Verde Valley. There was a misrepresentation at the Sedona City Council where the Vice President of Finance said, well, on average, we're spending about 90% a year. It's not true. He appeared before our committee, and he admitted it was those 2 years, and he said he didn't have the numbers on any other years.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about parity and equity in the sharing of revenues. And this question is, what do you feel is a fair way to determine how revenues are shared equitably at the different campuses and sites? And we'll start with you, Connie. What are your thoughts on how to share revenue across the different campuses and sites?
Well, Yavapai College serves all of the county, and so we have to look at the needs of the entire county. And some of that's going to be some administrative cost. So it's not going to be equal. Fair is not always equal. However, it needs to be appropriate and robust for the needs of each particular area. So we need data that helps us in that decision making. I'm not sure we have all of that, but I believe that's one of the notions I'm putting forward, is that we need to have more financial parity here and transparency in how that money is being spent.
Thank you. Paul?
Let me be very specific. We have 5 districts. we can easily determine by district how much money is coming in from the district, from taxes, from tuition, from fees, from the state, from any other source. We'll know that information. Now, it's a little confusing with District 2 because part of it's in Prescott Valley and part of it is in the Verde Valley. But this district is very clear. We're all Verde Valley. The money that comes in from each district should be spent for the benefit of the residents of that district. Now, that doesn't mean it's all spent in the district, because there are going to be some centralized functions, such as finance. So each district has to pay its fair share of the financial costs, based, I would think, on the number of students that are being used. But we could come up with the exact way to do that. But it's very simple. So if we know how much money is coming in, we could determine how many people from our district are actually going to Prescott. Okay, we pay for that. And the same thing in each other district. But otherwise, we spend in the district. Now, you can't just spend in one central spot of the district like they do in the two Prescott districts. Very little in Chino Valley, but pretty much it's all spent in Prescott. You got to look at the whole district and make sure that you're getting the outlying areas, you know, some sort of education, even if it's, you know, by going online for that education. But each district would then look to see how to spend that money in their district. Simple to me, and it's easily doable.
Thank you. This next question looks at your colleagues to the north, and it begins with, Coconino County Community College has proactively engaged in partnerships with the Navajo Nation and other nations in that county. What have you done to partner with the tribal nations, and what will you do if you're elected? And please be specific. So we're going to start with you, Paul.
Well, I'm not on the board, so I couldn't do anything, but I've had great conversations with Jane, the chair, and said, if I'm elected, I want to sit down with you, and she's agreed to do this, and find out what you need, and figure out how to get it for you. And that's what I believe. And I would do that throughout the whole county, with all the other Indians in the county. Sit down and figure out what they need, and give it to them. We have the most serious problem of all with the Native Americans in terms of education. They have unique situations that none of us face. I mean, they have girls there get very pregnant very young. They quit high school. There isn't a really standard there where let's go on and finish even high school. But the people like on the Yavapai Apache Nation, they really care, the leaders of that organization. I've never met a finer council in my life, honest to God. And I promised that I would work with them closely and not put them off. They've also promised, if they do that, that they will be very generous donators to the college. So that doesn't hurt either. I plan to have a very close working relationship with them, and they are my avid supporters.
Thank you. Connie?
I'm also absolutely open to meeting and talking and working with people and taking perspectives back to put forward to the rest of the board, who then speaks with one voice, but certainly listening to partner and move forward. I'm certainly aware of some of the challenges with our Native American folks from my accreditation experience all across the state, and different strategies to reach out and meet and work with them. Certainly unique communities and very, very deserving of extra support and outreach. I think some of that has happened in the past. I'm not sure how much recently, but we certainly have a lot of work to do in that area. So I don't have any specifics yet, but I will look forward to that in the future.
Thank you. The next question has to do with the relationship of the college to the economy of the community. So the specific question is, what is the role of the college in growing the economy of the Verde Valley? Connie, why don't we start with you?
Well, the economic engine is the need. And so most all of our CTE programs are focused on helping promote and provide well-skilled, knowledgeable workforce folks going into that economy. So that's that's part of our mission. That's what we do. The other is partnering with our businesses to see how we can help their employees and help them with their skill sets, whether it's working with the enchantment and having some of their folks come over learning the culinary pieces, whether it's some of our people who are entrepreneurs and starting new businesses and really don't know how to run a business, and providing some basic how-to soft skills type of work. So our economic engine is the need of our community, and that's why the studies with APS and all are really important. It's what areas do we need to support for the future so we have sustainable jobs and opportunities for our learners and our residents here in this community.
Thank you.
I think we've done a good job in Prescott of doing just that. I really do. And I want to get that done over here. We know what the businesses need. They've been telling us for the 4 years that I've been around involved in this. We know. We just haven't done it. And I want to do it. I don't want to study anymore. I want to do it. We know what to do. We just got to get the curriculums, and there are curriculums all over this country in community colleges, if we don't know them, to get these things done. Talk to the business leaders, work with them, get them done. Let me talk about culinary for a moment. You know, a lot of credit is going, how great a job we did in culinary. I was one of the people that pushed very hard for culinary. And we got culinary, but we didn't get what we asked for. We had a committee, and part of this committee were the experts, the chefs, the managers who run the great restaurants in the Verde Valley. And they said, we need 4 kitchens if we're going to teach chefs. We need this. And Dean Perry seemed to agree with that. And then suddenly what happened is I got an email, and so the other people, the chefs and everything, we're going to do 2 kitchens. We did 2 kitchens. You know who we're teaching there? It's starting the program. We're teaching high school students, nice. We're teaching people to be line cooks. You know what a line cook gets paid? Minimum wage they start at, minimum wage. We're not teaching chefs. We don't have the 4 kitchens. I want to get the 4 kitchens. So, you know, they did that. They gave us something that's half, and they take credit. Well, we gave them enough, you know, so that they won't bug us anymore. But the truth is they didn't give us what we need, and that's what they keep doing. I want everything to be transparent. I want it to be real. I want the community to be listened to. And when they say we need 4 kitchens, give the 4 kitchens. When these business people tell us what they need in CTE, give them what they need, not half.
Thank you. I have now completed all of the submitted questions, and I'm open to any questions from the floor. Yes, sir.
I'm probably the only one in this room that's worked with the Carver model, on the corporate side and the academic side. The founder of the Carver model will tell you it's not appropriate for elected officials, but the board is using it. The other thing the Carver model does, in the way Yavapai College uses it, is it breaks up transparency. We always talk about we need to be transparent. Here is some of the language that they use. Ownership linkage. I don't know how many times the public has asked me, what the hell does that mean? The other thing they use is ends. Do you know what that translates to, or what it should translate to? Common language. Goals, that's what they are. The Carver model used in the academic world is inappropriate. We are the only ones in the state of Arizona that uses it. The executive director of the Board of Regents of Arizona rejected it, but they continue to use it. It also tells the board to make the president compliant. So we go through meetings after meetings, checking how compliant president is. We need to change from compliance to performance.
So what I hear you saying is that you have serious reservations about the use of the Carver model as applies to academia and elected officials. Do you have a question you want to follow up with?
The question I want to ask is, when will you get rid of it so you can benchmark all the other community colleges that are doing well that's not using it?
Okay, when are you going to abandon this model so that you can benchmark other community colleges against, Yavapai against other community colleges? Paul, we'll start with you.
Well, if I get elected and the fellow from Prescott gets elected, and if he agrees with me, I don't know if he will, and if Deb agrees with me, and I'm pretty sure she will, I'll get rid of it in January.
Okay, thank you. That's pretty definitive. Connie?
I'd like to see some evidence that it's not working per se, but I would say that compliance, when we look at compliance, means that there is specific evidence, measurable evidence that those goals have been met. So I think there might be some misunderstanding or not fully understanding the Carver model, and if the recent research and work from what used to be the Carver policy is governance policy, it says that it's very applicable to most any board. So we just need to see some more data that shows that it's not working or why, or if there's some things that our governing board isn't doing appropriately to make it a reality. A couple of the community colleges here in the state also use the Carver model or policy governance. But some of it may be in name and not in reality, but they claim that they do, just for the record.
Okay, thank you. Here and then over here.
Do the candidates believe that the incoming newly selected president should be selected by the outgoing board or the incoming board?
Okay, Connie, we'll start with you.
Okay, what I would say is that upon the retirement of Dr. Wills, the governing board, in good faith, went out and got a consultant search committee, and they came up with a process to follow, to hire, to recruit, and to hire a new president of the college in a timely manner. Which is certainly appropriate. And so the process was put in place, including outreach to the community on what the expectations are of whoever this person is who's coming in, and online input into that, and some open forums where they provided input. In addition, then there is a committee, and all this stuff is posted on the webpage, of 17 people who are helping with the screening process of those applications that come to us later on. I don't have the exact dates, but later on this month or beginning of next month. And that group, which represents 17 people and represents every entity, our foundation, our faculty, our staff of the college, the community members, 2 board members, students, and so there's 17 members, and 5 of us reside here in the Verde Valley. I think it's a process, it's a fair process. We'll be looking for the best, the committee and the board will be looking for, hopefully find one of the best candidates possible that is a marriage or a fit for the college as it goes forward. And then the college president works for the board. So if there's a change in membership on the board, then there might be some shifts in expectations. But so I believe it's a fair process.
As I understood the question you were asking, should the current board or the newly elected board be the body that selects the president. Is
Yeah.
that your question? And
Yeah.
why do you feel that?
Yes,
Yes, what?
Which,
yes, I agree. It's right to do it now.
and so
current
you're
board.
saying the current board
Yes.
should select the president? Okay.
So that they're ready to start in January, February. Otherwise, it's,
It's delayed. Okay. Paul, your view on this?
It makes absolutely no sense for the current board to do it for a whole variety of reasons. Let's start with something that is one of my themes, people know me, the will of the people. If the people voted you out of office and put in new office to work with a president you'll never work with, then the people who are going to work with that president ought to be part of the selection process. That's simple. Secondly, the job will change if the majority of the board changes. So they're going to be selecting a president for a job that will no longer exist. Third, of course the new board will look at the recommendations from the committee. They're not going to just disregard that. You got a committee going to a lot of work. They'll probably select one of those people, but not necessarily. So it absolutely makes no sense. What this is this is a push, for some reason I don't understand, by the people on the board to still keep control, even if they lose control of the board. They want to pick the president that they want. It should be the whole next board, which will include 3 people from the old board, to select the president. And of course it shouldn't be the old board. It makes no sense. In terms of continuity, you got a whole bunch of vice presidents. One of them could be selected to temporarily manage the acting president until the new board decides otherwise. So there's not a problem with continuity. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Over here, sir, yes.
Yes, I was a member of the Verde Valley Board Advisory Committee. I was a member of the Yavapai College Foundation Board Advisory Committee, Friends of the Southwest Wine Center. I'm just reelected to my 3rd term on a local town council. And I'd like to know if both of you have ever approached me about this issue with the college and sought my opinion and experience as a resource.
Okay, the question, I'm going to repeat the question so that the TV audience hears it. You've been served on a number of advisory boards, and you're an elected official, is that correct?
Advisory boards connected to the college.
Connected to the college, and you're asking, have you ever been approached by members of the governing board to solicit your, these two candidates to solicit your input and opinion about what needs to be done?
Yes.
Is that the correct question? Okay, thank you.
no, I've not approached you, and the advisory group was disbanded when I came on board. That wasn't, if it's the one that you're talking about, I wasn't, it wasn't in play at that time, suspended. So, not personally.
Yes, of course I have. You were on the advisory board, but even after the board it wasn't disbanded, by the way. It still exists. It was suspended. So we were still there, and we were still ready, willing to talk with you or anybody else on the board who wanted to talk to us. But we weren't approached by anyone on the board except Deb McCaslin afterwards, who we talked to many times. But as a role of being, a member of a city council, I've talked to many members of city councils. There are 2 other members of city council of Sedona, and they can attest I've talked to them since the time that we were suspended. I'm still interested, even though I wasn't on the board. And I will continue very closely to work with members of the city councils, town councils, board of supervisors, superintendents of schools, et cetera, because I'm supposed to be representing the community if I'm on the board. And you can't represent the community if you don't go talk to the people who are in the city councils and town councils. So of course I'm going to do it.
Thank you. That answer your question, sir? Thank you. Other questions from the audience? Sure, Sandy.
A month or, I've forgotten when exactly it was, but we were asked by the college, some of us that are community leaders, were asked to come and give input. And at the end of the meeting, I asked that back to us, and I'm wondering what your timetable for that is.
Right.
Okay, let me repeat the question so that the TV audience has it. The mayor of Sedona is asking the question that she was involved in conversations to give recommendations to the college,
No, just to give input.
to give input to the college
What the needs are.
on what the needs are. And to date, you haven't received feedback on how that was handled, correct?
Yes, and what would be the timetable?
And what would be the timetable?
Right.
We're going to go with Paul first, okay?
Well, I don't know how to answer that question because I wasn't approached.
Okay. Pass, okay. Connie?
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't think we can ask questions that both can't answer in terms of the format that we had set up. I think both candidates need to be able to answer the question, so I think we may need to.
Okay, I'll make a suggestion.
And probably go to closing.
Have this conversation offline, since you're interested in a response from a current board member. Thank you, Kathy. I have one question I'd like to pose before you go to your closing statements, and we have sufficient time. You serve for 4 years, is that correct? Your term is it a 4? It's a 6-year term. Okay. So envision 6 years from now. Okay? We're sitting here and we're having a conversation. What are the 3 most important achievements from your service on the governing board for the past 6 years? What are the things you're going to say? These are the 3 things I'm most proud of that I contributed in serving on the governing board. Paul, we'll start with you.
Oh, that's a heck of a good question. I'm not going to start with the most important, but an important one, transparency. I want everyone to know how the money, where the money's coming from, where the money's being spent. If we have like a drug problem at a school, I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to give that out to everybody and tell you what we're going to do about it. I'm not going to hide anything. The public has a right to know, and obviously sometimes the college is going to do great things and sometimes they're going to make a mistake. Public forgives mistakes, as long as you don't make too many of them, but the public does not approve cover-up. So there's not going to be any cover-up. I want transparency. Secondly, I want every district to feel that the money that they're spending, that they're giving us, is being spent for the benefit of their residents. And the third thing I want to do is focus on education. We can't focus on everything. I can't do all these cultural things that they're doing now. If we want to do the cultural things, those cultural things, the money has to come from other places. But the money got to be spent on education, otherwise we don't have the money to spread everywhere. So I'm not against any of the cultural things, but if you want to have things like a 1,200-seat amphitheater that loses money, you got to get that money it's losing from some other place, which would be the citizens of Prescott, I would assume. If we're going to have a golf, I'm sorry, not golf, we got rid of that. If we're going to have a tennis court that's only used by the tennis racket club, let them buy it. I don't want to use it for that. I want to take that money and put it back into education. It's all about education for everybody, and I want to have that done. I don't know if I answered your question, but did I give you 3 things?
You did.
Okay.
Thank you. Connie?
As an educator, quality education that continues to improve, whether it's transfer credits or GPAs of learners as they move along, and that we're truly meeting the needs of our learners in the community as we outreach and keep checking to make sure that we're meeting their interests that turn into what the goals are. So top-notch educational quality that supersedes all of the other ones inside the state. I would like to see that we were forward-focused and doing some strategic risk-taking and ensuring that we are on the cutting edge of whatever courses or CTE programs, and it's not just about CTE, but CTE programs that best meet the changing demographics and economy that we have here. I would love to see that. And I would love to see an effective board who reaches out and works together with everyone for this community so that there's not a feeling that anybody is being left behind or shortchanged.
Thank you. As I mentioned in the beginning, there are 3 parts to our forum this evening. The first part was your opening statements. The second part was a conversation around the questions that people provided for your consideration. And the third part then is your closing statements. So each of you will have 2 minutes to share your closing thoughts with the audience. And we will start with Connie.
And so I'll just make this real brief. So with my educational background and my passion for systems assessment and continuous improvement, I really believe and know that experienced good leadership matters. And so I bring that to the table. And I do that so humbly because I really have listened. I really have listened. I have read. I have an understanding. I think some things in the past have not have been as positive as they probably could have been or should have been. I think we can learn from those and go forward, and I'm ready to continue and move forward for the agenda because I have a passion for students and learners here, and I would like to raise that bar and keep raising it.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, first I want to apologize to the audience, the TV audience, for being so passionate. Everybody told me, be calm, don't be so passionate up here, just be cool. It's hard for me to do that because this is so important to me. Education is the crux of our democracy. Without education, one generation without education, and we go back to the dark ages. I want the best education we can have for this district and for the county. I will do everything I can to get that. I need your votes. And I'm asking you to give me the votes. I promise you it will have my full attention, full energy, and I will put in every hour I need to try to get this right.
Can I make one last statement? Can I thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this and allowing people to hear different viewpoints so people can make choices. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so in closing, the League wants to say thank you to you, Paul, and to you, Connie, for participating in this forum. And thank you also to all of you for your attention and participation this evening. I want to just remind you that Election Day is November 6th.
We know that.
Okay? The last day to register to vote or to change your party registration or update your address is October 9th. Early voting ballots will be mailed out beginning October 10th. Completed ballots can be returned by mail or dropped off at an election location in your town or city or at the county elections office. Also, we have a one-page information handout in the back of the room that I encourage you to pick up. It's about the 5 ballot measures that are on the November ballot, and it simplifies the language so it's understandable. And remember, too, that if your question was not asked this evening and you still want to pose that question, the speakers will be available, the candidates will be available to speak with you at the close of this forum. Also, there is some other candidate information available in the back. And of course, as the League of Women Voters is so fond to say, vote, because voting is people power. Thank you.
Connie,